Today we're looking at cards we want to play. We want to play these cards, but we can't make them work just yet. So my card is Void Mage Prodigy. Boy, do I look at this card every, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 months. Every single time the metagame changes a little bit. Is it time for Void Mage Prodigy? Is it time for Void Mage Prodigy? It's a blue-blue 2/1 human wizard with blue-blue sack a wizard counter target spell. Now, why would I want to play this? Because I play merfolk, and you know what? It just so happens that most merfolk are incidentally wizards as well. Silvergill Adept, Harbinger, Merfolk Trickster, Void, Vidalian Hexcatcher. So we got a lot of wizards in there, and it would be nice if we have a hard counter to anything. To hit the Furies, the Solitudes, the Omnaths. Any creature whatsoever, maybe even a Murktide. But jamming this thing in there is still a bit weird. Even with a bunch of Cavern of Souls and Mutavaults, and not to mention, you know, is the metagame right for this card? Because, that one toughness, like to get eaten up by Wrenn and 6s, and still gets eaten up by Fury if I don't have the mana up. And that's the awkward thing. Do I have enough mana? Can I build the deck so that I can have blue up all the time? I don't know, it's hard to make work, but I would love to play this card. I would love to play this card because the possibility that against a deck that doesn't have so much removal, I think this thing's a bomb. All right, we got Tommy here with Heartless Summoning. Now that is... I think there's a lot of people in the same camp as you. Summoning. This is that bizarre enchantment. Black 1 generic. Creature spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, but creatures you control get -1/-1. So the dream is to ramp out something enormous. I mean, it's basically, it's like a mana dork, but it costs 2 less to cast instead of ramping up 1 mana. Instead of saving on 1 mana or ramping by 1 mana, you're saving by 2. But the creatures you control get -1/-1. So whatever you put out in play needs to be big, chonky, big and chonky, high impact. Haven't there been wasn't there a Gyruda deck that used this? Gyruda. I don't remember how that worked though. It made Gyruda cost 4 mana. Enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into the graveyard, put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield under your control. I don't really remember. Anyway, Heartless Summoning, huge fan favorite amongst a lot of players. Isochron Scepter. What, in what capacity? You mean competitively? Because I mean, you obviously can play this in any commander deck. But in competitive play, this card is actually quite awkward. So 2 mana with Imprint. Enters the battlefield, exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. You can pay 2 and get copies of that eternally. Now in Commander, yeah, sure, just play this. Not so many people are going to be interested in blowing up your Isochron Scepter. They may not even have removal for it. But if you want to play in the more competitive formats like Modern or Legacy, this thing's a liability. Turn 2, you're gonna do nothing except put an instant underneath this thing, and then so what? This thing can be removed in a multitude of ways. There's infinite artifact destruction, prismatic ending, March of Otherworldly Light, the counter spells. It's hard to get this thing to live. It's hard enough. The good news is though, it has to enter the battlefield. But if it enters the battlefield and they remove it on the battlefield, you got 2 for 1. The idea is to get an infinite for 1 off of this thing, but if they blow this thing up on the battlefield, you're going to get 2 for 1. Okay, every Scepter deck always just gets outpaced by aggro and locked out by control. Yeah, the thing is, you don't have infinite time in the competitive formats. Truly. The game can end on turn 4. So you spending turn 2 on this damn thing better make an amazing comeback after that. You better put something like Ancestral Recall underneath it. Pierre, my baby leveler. I want whoops, wrong leveler. This leveler, I want so much for this beefy boy to carry me to victory instead of just killing me next turn. The leveler, 5 mana, 10/10. Forget the stats, because when leveler comes into play, remove your library from the game. So hold on, are you trying to win this thing through combat? Well, you want to do that, you're supposed to combine this thing with the Thassa's Oracle. That's the whole idea. Just play Thassa's Oracle and you win immediately. You actually we gotta have something with haste on the battlefield. 5 mana for a 10/10, I don't even think is worth it. For 5 mana, you can get something equally big. but without killing you next turn. Unpopular opinion, Silver Gilliduff. Ha. Ha 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 ha. Zeagle there with the funny. With the funny. Force Field from Cosmic Seeds. This thing, 3 mana artifact, pay 1. The next time target unblocked creature would deal damage to you this turn. Prevent all but 1 of that damage. Yeah, if you're getting attacked by like 1/1 tokens, it's not even going to feel very valuable for you to even do that. I didn't even know this card existed. Part of the reserved list. It's not bad, but I wouldn't say it's great. I mean, you can play it. It's just not as effective as you want. You better have that 40 life that commander gives you. You can afford to take 1 damage once in a while. You can afford to take 1 damage. Richard with, I have a Bant Eldrazi Descendants Path deck. Hold on, isn't that... Okay, Descendants Path. It works great when it works, but it's very inconsistent. Well, that's the problem with janky cards. Green 2 generic at the beginning of your upkeep, it's an enchantment. Reveal the top card of your library if it's a creature card that shares a creature type with a creature you control. You may cast the card without paying its mana cost, otherwise put that card on the bottom of your library. You may cast the card. So effectively, like, the top of your deck is like an extension of your hand. You need a lot of ways of manipulating the top of your deck. And you say it's an Eldrazi deck, so you need to do it in a colorless way. So what do you need? You need, like, definitely Sensei's Divining top, I would think. Sensei's... Oops, did I just put Sensei's Diving top? You would need this card. If it's Commander, you need at least 1 of them. If it's not Commander, you need 4 of them. That's the best way you can abuse this thing. But it's only, like, giving you 1 card. Like, that's the real problem. And how many Eldrazi's do you even have in your Descendants deck? Descendants Path deck? Alpha Nerd with the super chat. Death Shadow? What capacity? This card really exists. I mean, it's a modern staple as far as I'm concerned. 1 black. Just ship your life total down to 10. Fetches and shocks. Unless you're talking about Commander. Now I see the problem, because your life total's at 40, which makes this card, like, quite unplayable. Or very, very difficult to make work, because you have way more life you have to dispose. Just throw Necropotence in your deck. Here we go. I'm fixing the problem right here. I'm making cards unplayable work. Necropotence. Drain 30 life. Play your Death Shadow as a 3/3. Boom. Problem solved. Old Gnawbone always gets removed before you can attack. Gnawbone. Green 5 generic. It's literally called Old Gnawbone. Okay. It's a 7/7 dragon flying. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasures. Well, you gotta attack the player that doesn't have any mana open. Or I guess, I don't know, maybe the other players will interact. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. Or just play the red one. I see your problem, though. And no one trusts anyone with a lot of treasure tokens. No one will trust. Yoshu with Lord Tressorhorn. What is this? Alright, that's the 10/4 zombie that comes into play. You lose 2 life and sack 2 creatures and an opponent draws 2 cards. And it will never work. It will never. Hold on. So, like, what's the idea? You're trying to... You lose 2 life, you sack 2 creatures, so you need to make a deck where sacking the creatures is a benefit, and your opponent drawing cards is a curse. Hard thing to pull off. Aquain Bay. Alright, we got Flame Speaker Adept. I want to scry and kill stuff. The Flame Speaker, red 2 generic 2/3 human shaman. Whenever you scry, Flame Speaker Adept gets +2/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. I see your future, Mantle and Ash. I see your problem too, because a lot of the scry cards that you will play, there's just not enough of them. Like, I think you can play with Preordain, and that's about it. And I think there's cards like you'd want to play Brainstorm, you'd want to play Ponder, but they don't scry. So you're going to be playing with, like, a lot of mediocre scry card. Preordain, what's it called? Serum Visions. That's the downside to this thing. Whenever you scry, it gets +2/+0. So you fill your deck with, like, a bunch of, you know, mediocre cantrips. So we got to wait till there's better scrying cards out there. Or as scrying cards get better, this card gets better. Marcelo with the super chat. The stuffy doll count? I guess if you can't make it work. I thought this is a staple in Commander. 5. It's a 0/1 indestructible. What can go wrong? You choose a player. Whenever it's dealt damage, deal that much damage to the player. Don't you know, what is it called? Guilty Conscience. You ever heard of this card? Or like, or do you try to set up the combo, but it just never works? Is that the problem? They always see the Guilty Conscience coming. Or if you're having trouble resolving your construct, play Cavern of Souls in your deck. Name construct, and then it'll be uncounterable. Alright, we've got Gruffles. Galta. You want to play some Galta around here. It was my first legendary creature, and it's not a bad card, but I don't really know what to use it in for Commander. Well, it's just a big beefy creature, that's all. Or you could make it your Commander. Keep threatening like this gigantic, large 12/12 trampler. I wouldn't say it's the best Commander out there. Spellcast X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. Just a big beefy boy. Or girl. Sorry, I don't know. Big beefy dinosaur. The plus side to Galta is 2 shots of commander damage and they're dead. Only takes 2 shots. The big squid with Biovisionary. Who's been trying to make this card work? How do you make this work? Okay, it's a blue-green, 1 generic, 2/3 human wizard. At the beginning of the end step, if you control 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. So you have to clone it. And you have to wait till the beginning of your... No, at the beginning of your end step, you control 4 or more creatures. Okay, it's not that bad. It's actually not that bad. You just need to copy this thing over and over again. I don't know how to make a consistent deck out of it. Like, if you make a deck full of clones, like, what are you going to clone? Your other clone? Like, the clone needs to clone something in the first place. What if your opponent doesn't play a creature? You just got a bunch of 0/0s in your hand, doing absolutely nothing. Mirror March plus a Biovisionary. Mirror March. What do we got here? It's a red 5 generic enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, flip a coin until you lose a flip. For each flip you won, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste, exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Alright. Maybe that's a way to gamble your way into 4 Biovisionaries. Next we've got, what is this? Did I read that right? Mana Short? Does this work to any degree at all today? Blue 2 generic from, okay, Beanpot. What are you up to? Instant. Tap all lands target player controls and empty their mana pool. Okay, hold on. So what's the flip? What's the Oracle text now? Tap all lands target player controls and that player loses all unspent mana. Yeah, you can't float that mana. Don't be floating it. I have no idea how this will ever get made work. Period. Does this have a purpose in any capacity in Magic? It is an instant. That's some good news. Oh yeah, we got the super duper Halo Fountain. Never used its final ability. Can't get to that. The white ability. White 2 generic. So the last ability is white. Tap. Untap 15 tapped creatures you control, you win the game. Is it because you already... Do people concede to you before they even try? Before you even try? Or you just can't get that many creatures in play? The other abilities are untap target creature you control, create a 1/1. Or untap 2 untap creatures you control, draw a card. Oh, you need more creatures. More creatures! You know, you could use Doubling Season. Doubling Season might work. Anything that doubles your tokens. Biovision is pretty easy with clone effects. Yeah, but if you have enough clone effects in your deck, they do nothing. Like, you look up clone. Like, what are you gonna do if there's nothing in... What are you gonna do when there's nothing in play here? You do nothing. Garrett! With the Pygmy Hippo! Thank you very much for the super chat. What is this? Okay, we got a... What? Green, blue, 2/2, hippopotamus. If Pygmy Hippo attacks and is not blocked, you may choose to have it deal no combat damage this turn. If you do, defending player draws all mana from his or her lands, and then his or her mana pool is emptied. After combat, add an equal amount of colorless mana to your mana pool. This is like mana short all over again. You may have defending player activate a mana ability of each land they control and lose all unspent mana. If you do... So it's like... It's literally, it's like mana, it's very close to mana short. But if they didn't spend the mana, you get the mana. That is so bizarre. Crazy stuff. Okay. So, you and Beanpot get together and try to make a new deck out of this thing. What a bizarre card. Never even heard of this thing. Alright, so we're going to look at more cards that everyone wants to try to make work, but we got to thank our sponsors first. FusionGamingOnline.com, your one-stop shop to get all the cards that you're trying to make work. And when you do, let us all know about it so everyone else can buy those cards. You can get stuff from Phyrexia All Will Be One, March of the Machines, or all the latest sets at FusionGamingOnline.com. But don't forget to use coupon code Nikachu at checkout for 5% off all your purchases, and it supports the channel. Don't forget, it also saves you money. We're also going to thank Mana Traders, the premier place for renting Magic cards online. Your ability to play any deck, any format, anytime you want. And every month they got the Mana Trader series up here where you get to play in a free tournament every month. $10,000 in prizes if you're a Mana Traders subscriber. If you're not, you still get to play in the tournament, but at a lower, like, just, there's a lower payout. Yeah, non-subscribers, if you win first place, you get $300, but if you're a subscriber, you get $3,000. You can support the channel using my Mana Traders link in the description below, or save 10% off your first 2 months using coupon code Nikachu_3RS. And now back to the crazy cards. The wild cards we're trying to make work. Alright, what do we got here? Can't even fly. I always want to use Tamishi, Reality Architect, in a deck like As Foretold deck, but it's a struggle. Tamishi! Blue 2 generic for a 2/3 Moonfolk Wizard. Whenever one or more non-creature perms are returned to hand, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Return, and you can pay a white X. Return a land you control to its owner's hand. Return target artifact or enchantment card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. It is an interesting card. It's card draw. It's enchantment reanimation. Got a lot of stuff going on. I don't even know what is the problem. It's got good stats. It's not too expensive. It's at least 2 colors if you want to make this your commander. Whenever one or more non-creature permanents are returned to hand, draw a card. And this says anybody, so you can bounce other people's stuff. But ability only triggers once a turn. All right, next we got Rage Kitty. Constant Mist in my red-green landfall. EDH never works. But you love the card. I have to say, hold on, before I move on, this card looks really good. I don't really understand the... I mean, maybe in practice it doesn't work nearly as well, but there's got to be some really good synergy here. Return lands to your hand. It seems fine. Looks cool. Oh, I guess maybe the problem is getting the enchantments in the graveyard. Maybe that's what I'm missing. Constant Mists. Okay, a green 1 generic. Instant buyback. Sack a land. Creatures deal no combat damage this turn. I know the problem. It never works. Well, it never works because fogs sort of suck. Creatures deal no combat damage this turn. Like, you know, creature damage is only one form of winning the game. People can just combo off and kill you. And who wants to sack their lands in order to deal, like, fog your opponent. Anyway, fog is a pretty poor card. I guess well, anyway. If you like it, you like it. It's good on defense versus the right opponent. They'll think twice about attacking you. They'll think twice. They'll think thrice. I guess you just can't beat everything. Zeus with the Joda's Codex. Joda. There we go. 5 mana artifact, pay 5, tap, draw a card. It's got domain. 5, tap, draw a card. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each basic land type among lands you control. So this is just basically, I mean, in a 5-color deck, tap, just tap, draw a card. It's not bad. I wouldn't say it's mind-blowing, but you know, that's value. Drawing 2 cards a turn. Arethusa says, I remember back when I was a newbie where I can't figure out how to utilize Dread Horde Arcanist in Standard at least. Maybe they're just... Was this even a card in Standard? I don't know if this was a card in Standard. I didn't play Standard at the time. But you gotta fill your graveyard with all the good cantrips. These are the types of cards that are like really amazing in like Modern, Legacy, Vintage, but less so in Standard because they don't have the card pool to abuse it. Baron Glory. Gotta make it work with... I got it to work with Liliana the Veil once. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control no permanents other than Baron Glory, you have no cards in hand, you win the game. Can't you just play Obliterate? Oh, the problem is getting the no cards in hand part. I get it, yeah. Oh, so you use Liliana the Veil. You gotta somehow use Obliterate, because it blows up everything except enchantments. It's the only way I know how to use it. If you use Liliana the Veil, I see that you made yourself discard all your cards. And then maybe edict yourself to nothing. Okay, Tamishi does see play in Thopter Sword Modern decks. Alright, there we go. Maybe some inspiration. Gotta play the Thopter Sword combo in that Tamishi deck. I want Audric Blood Curse to work so bad. Audric. Because he looks like Count Dooku. Alright, so... he does! He looks like Count Dooku. Or is it Count Dooku? There he is! Christopher... what's his name? Christopher Lee? Planeswalker... No, sorry. Jedi form. Alright, we got a Jedi over here. Vampire Soldier, 3/3. Enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens, where X is the number of abilities from among Flying, First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance found among creatures you control. Oh, I'm sorry, did R&D take a page out of the AI-generated cards? This is exactly what the AI-generated card would do. Just to fill up the entire text box with all abilities possible. I don't know. I don't know how to make this thing work either. Oh, okay, what do we have next? What do you guys have? We've got here Vexing Devil. Yeah, and I know it'll never work. If you can figure out... I mean, this is like an unsolved math problem for like 1,000 years. How to make Vexing Devil work in any deck. The 1 red 4/3, but when it enters the battlefield, any opponent can deal 4 damage to themselves to make you sack Vexing Devil. Maybe there's a thing where if a creature gets sacrificed on the battlefield, you get some sort of ability. Because you have to sack it. It doesn't get countered. It enters the battlefield. There's a trigger. And you can maybe make some use of that. Fogs work with a Lured Thicket Basilisk. Okay. Maybe something. Oh! Scab Ruinator! Maybe for the Merfolk crowd. A lot of Merfolk players used to play this card. Blue, 1 generic, 5/6. It's a 5/6 flyer for 3 mana! That's value! You may cast Scab Ruinator from your graveyard. But here's the catch. As an additional cost to cast Scab Ruinator, you gotta exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard. So some people cheat this in play with Ether Vial. I don't know, I think that might be the only way to really cheat it in play reliably. Anyway, but it's a big beefy card, and it keeps coming back for more. But you got to keep creatures in that graveyard. Got to be an infinite number of stuff go in there. As it keeps dying, you can keep feeding it to the Scab Ruinator. Okay, we got Darthamed. Okay, we got Escaped Shapeshifter. It escaped! Get him! What is this? It's a blue 3 generic 3/4 creature. As long as your opponent controls any creatures with flying, Escape Shapeshifter gains flying. The same is true for First Strike, Trample, and Protection from any color. That is a bizarre card for blue, but I get it. It's like a chameleon that copies your opponent's stuff. But it's more of a cute card than a powerful card, right? It's more of a cute card. I'm trying to have some fun with that thing. Dr. Django! I've tried so hard to make Archellos Lagoon Mystic to work in Commander. I'm always surprised when people say they can't make it work in Commander. What's to make work? Okay, we got a legendary turtle in the Simic colors. It's a 2/4 turtle shaman. As long as Archellos Lagoon Mystic is tapped, other permanents enter the battlefield tapped. That is bizarre. As long as Archello is untapped, other permanents enter the battlefield untapped. Teferi's Isle. We found the Teferi's Isle deck. We did it! We did it, boys and girls. This is the Teferi's Isle deck. They won't come into play tap no more. You're going to get that extra blue. So you're going to have blue every other turn. We found the Teferi Isle deck. It's in Archellos. I don't know what... You basically have to try to abuse cards that come into play tapped. I guess like Karoo lands and so on. Scab Ruinator was the most overhyped card of its time. And it still is. It still is, isn't it? What do we got here? Can't even fly! Greater Gargadon. There are Greater Gargadon decks out there. What do they use? Restore Balance? So the whole idea is you like restore balance. Each player chooses a number of lands they control equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest, then sacks the rest. Players sacrifice creatures and discard cards the same way. Now that combo is really well with the Greater Gargadon because you suspend it for 10, but then you have this ability: sack an artifact, creature, or land, remove a time counter from Greater Gargadon, activate only if Greater Gargadon is suspended. So you like put restore balance on suspend. Or you just cheat it in play with a Cascade spell. Does that work? Yeah, you can cheat it in play with a Cascade spell. And then with Greater Gargadon suspended, when this thing is on the stack, you just sack all your permanents, you wipe out everyone's stuff. But be careful, you'll lose your friends. They will dump you immediately. So we're not inviting this restore balance Greater Gargadon guy back. So you be careful. With great power comes great responsibility. We got Memento. Ishkana. Is that the spider? I want to use my giant spider. Alright, we got Ishkana. This card's good, isn't it? Oh, it's legendary spider. So a green 4 generic. So one awkward thing is it's mono green, right? So you want to use that in Commander. It probably better not being used as the Commander. So 3/5 with reach with Delirium enters the battlefield. If there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, put 3/1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield and pay a black 6 generic. Oh, it's not mono green. Sorry, it's Golgari. Target opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. I would imagine there's some way of making this work, right? Regurgitating more spiders onto the battlefield, more token generation, and then if you have enough tokens, like make one player just die instantly. You probably need more milling effects, like Grizzly Salvage. I don't know how to spell Grizzly. Need stuff like this. Anything that mills cards into the graveyard. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library, put a creature or land card from among them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. To access that delirium. Probably needs to be a graveyard-centric deck that also doubles the tokens. Michael with the Hunted Horror. Would work with Escaped Shapeshifter. Would it? Black, 7/7 trample. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 2 3/3 green centaur creature tokens with protection from black. Actually, I mean, in Commander, you just give one person the 3/3 centaurs. You just attack someone else with the 7/7. One-on-one, this becomes more problematic, though. Yo, little Ted! Hedron alignment. This is another one of those, like, bio-visionary cards. So it can't even get that 4th zone. So blue 2 generic enchantment with hexproof. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may reveal your hand. If you do, you win the game. If you own a card named Hedron alignment in exile, in your hand, in your graveyard, and on the battlefield. Is the battlefield the hardest one for you? Can't even get that 4th zone. Pay a blue 1 generic scry. That seems like the easiest zone to get. So you need one. I would think the graveyard actually might be the hardest. Getting into the graveyard and then keeping it in the graveyard. People got that graveyard hate, people. It's got that graveyard hate. Yeah, this is the Exodia, the forbidden one. Never able to stall long enough to complete the parts. I hate playing Hedron alignment. And of course, also completely stone useless in Commander. The Monocle Rogue! Trying to win with Azor's Elo... I don't know what this... Azor's Elocutors is an uphill battle. I don't even know what this card is. Alright, Azorius 3 generic for a 3/5 human advisor. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a filibuster counter on Azor's Elocutors. Then if Azor's Elocutors has 5 or more filibusters counter on it, you win the game. Whenever a source deals damage to you, remove a filibuster counter from Azor's Elocutors. I guess this could be win with a... just a taking turns deck. Like, that's... it's not creative, but if you have infinite turns, you just win with this thing. It's just a win condition. And frankly, I think your friends would like it, that you prove that you can win the game with infinite turns. We got the little Mr. Doom. Oversimplify. Keep trying it in Commander decks. Oversimplify. We got the blue-green 3 generic sorcery. Exile all creatures. Each player creates a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token and puts a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the total power of creatures they controlled that were exiled this way. So I think the problem is it can backfire on you. I mean, you gotta have a big board yourself. So hold on, you combine all the power and then each token gets that big? Each player creates a 0/0 green, blue. Oh, so everyone gets one big creature. Each equal to the total power of creatures they controlled exiled this way. Everyone's spirit animal combines into one big spirit animal. I get it. I don't know how to make it work either. Battle of Wits. This card is not meant to work. Just meant to, I don't know, put fear in your opponent when they have to shuffle your deck, that's all. Joseph with Sigarda's Splendor. What is this? A white 2 generic enchantment. As Sigarda's Splendor enters the battlefield, note your life total. Alright, noted. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if your life total is greater than or equal to the last noted life total for Sigarda's Splendor. Then note your life total. Oh, so you have to keep track of your life. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 1 life. Draw a card if your life total is great. So as long as you keep gaining life, it's like a rich gets richer situation. You keep drawing cards, but it's only at the beginning of your upkeep, so you just draw 1 extra card each turn. I'm noticing, like, the cards that just get you one extra card a turn, those are the ones that are hard to make work. Maybe one extra card a turn is just not that powerful anymore in just Magic the Gathering, period. Just get out of here. Scornful egotist. Robert with the super chat. I want to make general first recurric work. In what format? But can never make it function the way I want it to. This card sort of works in Modern, sort of. You just play a bunch of multicolored spells, right? Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a 4/4 red and white golem artifact creature token. There's millions of spells you can play. You can play Wrenn and 6. You can play the red-green Kavu. You can play it's a solid card. I'm surprised it still doesn't see that as much play as it should in Modern. Maybe the hard part is that it doesn't have any ETB, but it still has hexproof, and it's it has only hexproof from monocolored stuff, not from multicolored stuff. So dies to Wrenn and 6 itself. Wow. I guess that's the main problem. Ban Wrenn and 6 is this thing is virtually unbanned itself. We have Gruffles here with the super chat. 8.5 Tails doesn't have a point. Also, favorite multicolor commanders episode. Favorite multicolor. Okay, sure, we'll try one of those one day. Thank you very much for the suggestion. 8.5 Tails. It doesn't have a point. White for a 2/2 Fox Cleric. White 1 generic. Target perm you control gains protection from white until end of turn. And then pay 1. Target spell or perm becomes white until end of turn. Well, the point is I'm going to make everything white and give protection from white until end of turn. For 3 mana. Virtue is an inner light that can prevail in every soul. Stygian Souls, Skeletal Swarming. What I like about this show is I'm learning about cards I had no idea even existed. This is a new card. So green, black, 3 generic, enchantment. Each skeleton you control has trample, attacks each combat if able, and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of other skeletons you control. At the beginning of your end step, create a tapped 1/1 black skeleton creature token. If a skeleton died this turn, create 2 of those tokens instead. I would not be surprised if this is a card that got a lot better when, like, one set breaks out. It's like a skeleton set. It's like a big skeleton set. They give you a lot of good skeletons, because I think up to this point, a lot of the skeletons are sort of just... they're bones! What do you expect from them? They're not going to attack for, like, big chunks of damage. We need the dinosaur skeleton, I guess. Dinosaur skeleton on the duty. So Michael actually has an idea with Battle of Wits. Spawn Shy of Ulamog plus 200 Emrakul Ions Torn equals most expensive MTG victory ever. That's illegal. It's completely illegal. I can't even fly. Thanks so much for the super chat. Psychic Vortex. In a commander deck. Blue, 2 generic, cumulative upkeep, draw a card. At the end of each of your turns, sacrifice a land and discard your hand. I think this is simple. You put this in some sort of dredge deck. So like you'll draw multiple cards a turn, and then I don't know what the dredge victory is, but I think that would work there. Or maybe there's just not enough dredge cards to make a commander deck work in a 100-card deck. Maybe that's a problem. It's something to do with the graveyard, though. Something to do with the graveyard. Nothing to do with your hand, though. You gotta make use of that graveyard. Remember, a graveyard can be an extension of your hand if you use the graveyard synergies. Wario! Did we do Summoning Station yet? No. By the way, I'm super hyped for the Mario movie. I just saw the trailer. The final trailer the other day. Really hyped over that Mario Kart scene. 7 mana. Artifact. Put a 2/2 colorless Pincher creature token into play. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from play, you may untap Summoning Station. This is a lot of mana for a very underwhelming ability. I know why this doesn't quite work. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from play. Okay, no, but there is one good thing about it. I mean, you don't put any mana to make this 2/2 colorless pincher creature token. So you tap it, you make the token. Unfortunately, it's a colorless creature. It's not an artifact creature, right? So it's not an artifact creature that you can sack to put in the graveyard. It's gotta be artifacts that go into the graveyard from play. They figured that out, huh? Alright, that's a build-around card. That's a build-around card. Who have I not got yet? John! Time Sifter. Versus Vintage Low CMC decks. 5 mana. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, each player removes the top card of his or her library from the game. The player who removed the card with the highest converted mana cost takes an extra turn after this one. If 2 or more players' cards are tied for highest cost, the tied players repeat this process until the tie is broken. So you gotta make sure... you gotta stack your deck with the expensive cards. You keep stacking your deck with the expensive cards. You need two other stations to make the combo work. Oh, it's a station combo. DK Sovereign. Enduring Renewal. I use with Grind Station and Phyrexian Walker. Such a fun card, but always gets shut down or caught in some BS during the combo. White 2 generic. Play with your hand revealed. If you draw a card, reveal the top card of your library instead. If it's a creature card, put it into your graveyard. Otherwise, draw a card. Whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from play, return it to your hand. I lost to this card once. Someone played this against me in Modern, and I was dead. Whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from play, return it to your hand. If you would draw a card, reveal the top card of your library instead. If it's a creature card, put it into your graveyard. Otherwise, draw. I couldn't remember what the lock was, though. I got locked out of the game. And then I lost. And then I was big sad. Okay, Christopher with the Reaper King. Ah, good God. Okay, I don't even know how to describe this mana cost. Wooburg! Just pay Wooburg and we're all good. A 6/6. Other scarecrows you control get +1/+1. Whenever another scarecrow comes into play under your control, destroy target permanent. This card is self-explanatory. You just make this your commander, right? You throw them scarecrows down, you blow things up. Yeah, CMC 10. CMC 10 Wooburg. Drago with Guile. Oh, I forgot what this card does. Blue, 3 generic for a 6/6 elemental incarnation. Guile can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. If a spell or ability you control would counter a spell, instead exile that spell and you may play that card without paying its mana cost. When Guile is put into the graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into its owner's library. Well, that's insane! I mean, you just play this thing, you counter spells. Remember, if a spell or ability you control would counter a spell, exile the spell, and then we get it. Or is it the problem is that we can't... Oh no, it says it's permanent, right? Counter that spell, instead exile that spell, and you may play that card without paying its mana cost. It doesn't say until end of turn, so you can wait. You can counter creatures, wait until your turn and start casting them. Card looks great. Everything goes with Guile's theme. Show and tell it with force of negation, force of will. Absolutely. Okay, Aquane Bay. Thank you very much for the super chat. By the way, you can call me Aqua. Okay, that sounds good. Aqua for short. Colonial Hydra. Colonian Hydra. I want to use it in a +1/+1 counter deck to go crazy, but it takes too long, or no other monsters. So it's the green 3 generic 0/0 with trample. Enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. When Colonial Hydra attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it for each creature you control. You're gonna need extra attacks, or you need to play in a commander game that's slow. Like, if you're, like, in competitive Commander, this is just not going to make the cut. Someone's going to combo off and kill you before anything. So, anyway. Yeah, you need a battle cruiser play group, and it will work fine. In a faster format, you're going to just need extra attacks. Bro man, thanks so much for the super chat. Borrowing 100,000 arrows. Yeah, I heard of this card. Okay, so blue 2 generic sorcery. Draw a card for each tap creature target opponent controls. Draw a card for each tap creature, and it's a sorcery. I think to make this card work, you need some card that will let you play anything you want at instant speed. I think that's the key to this card. Like, because it's sorcery, like, you sort of need to wait for someone to attack, and they might have killed you. They're like, oh great, they're tapping their creatures. I can now use my borrowing 100,000 arrows. But then they attack you and you die, right? So it's probably some way of making this card playable at instant speed. So as people are even tapping their creatures, even for mana, you can do something with it. If you combo with a tap effect, it might be good. But you gotta tap their creatures. Every tap creature an opponent controls, unfortunately. 100-handed one. This could be a show. Magic cards with a number in the name. White 2 generic for a 3/5 giant with vigilance. It's got monstrosity 3. So you can make it monstrous and put 3+1/+1 counters on it. As long as 100-handed one is monstrous, it has reach and can block an additional 99 creatures each combat. That's right. You heard that. Just in case your opponent has 99 creatures. Has anyone been in a situation where they outmuscled the 100-handed one? Is anyone playing this card? Just in case you need to block that many creatures. You gotta give him Death Touch. And I guess enough power to kill as many creatures as possible. I only see 8 arms. Artist failed the assignment. Oh, it must be way behind. Alright, what do we got here? And Petri says, Colonial Hydra wears many tri-corner hats? Okay, possibly Steve-O. Furnace Dragon. Furnace Dragon, red, 6 generic for a 5/5 dragon. Affinity for artifacts. Flying, when Furnace Dragon comes into play, you may, if you played it from your hand, remove all artifacts from the game. I was like, okay, you can make this thing work. Just play an artifact deck, and then all of a sudden you're gonna wipe out all your artifacts. How to remove all... Oh, but you get to remove all your opponent's artifacts from the game as well. I guess if you play strictly a treasure deck, you could make this work. Because you could, like, cast it for, like, X cost and then sack the treasures. Like, it has to be a deck that only makes treasures, so you're limiting your liability. So when there's a battlefield, all the artifacts are gone, including yours. So you don't want to be too heavy on, like, artifacts you depended on. You know what I mean? Yeah, maybe artifacts with ETBs, so you get some, like, value there. That's the only way I can see this thing being made work. That's brutal. Who doesn't want to play with artifacts? I love my artifacts. Joe Cube says, I once had my opponent had 123 creatures, and then you wished you had the 100-handed one. DK Sullivan says, love the wall decks. Darksteel Rector, Helix Pinnacle, Chance Encounter, the most unreliable single card alt wins. Hold on. Darksteel Reactor. Look at one of them. 4 mana. It's indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on Darksteel Reactor. When Darksteel Reactor has 20 or more charge counters on it, you win the game. Yeah. Though I guess one big problem with these cards is, like, once they're on the battlefield, everyone sort of sees it coming. So as, like, the counters start moving up, they're like, oh, we gotta do something. We gotta do something about Chris over here. Chris trying to win with Darksteel Reactor. No, we're not gonna... Hey, stop attacking me, stupid. Chris has Darksteel Reactor at, like, 19 counters. At your upkeep, you may put a charge counter. So you have to basically double the counters over and over again. in order to make it work. Echo! Or Echoes. Barren Glory. Oh god, didn't we look at this one? I guess everyone's trying to make Barren Glory work. The only combo I came up with to win is with Curvex Spite with Academy Rector on board, fetching out Barren Glory, but I've not achieved this yet. Been trying for years. I think you have to just naturally have this. Maybe you just have to use some sort of enchantment tutor and then blow up the board. It's the only way I could see making this work. What is Carevex Spite? Black, black, black. For an instant, sack all permanents, discard your hand. Target player loses 5 life. I mean, that's one way of doing it. And you know what? There was another user earlier that said that they made Barren Glory work with Liliana the Veil. So you like discard cards till your hand is empty. And then I guess Ultimate itself targeting you. I think people should just go the red route with Obliterate. So just have a Boros deck. I think this is clean. It can't be countered. So you can have this thing sitting on the board. And it's a lot of mana anyway. It's like 6 mana, right? And you get Obliterate on the board and you just blow everything up. Just make sure Obliterate's the last card in your hand. In my opinion. Unless I'm missing something. I'll play with Miko. Oh, I think there was a reference to the big squig with Furnace Dragon. Play Furnace Dragon with Mycosynth Lattice. Oh my goodness. No, but then everything gets removed from the game. Mycosynth Lattice makes everything an artifact. When it comes to play, if you played it from your hand, remove all artifacts from the game. That's terrible. Or evil. You can also use Zuron Orb. Yeah, but you're only getting rid of your land. You can't get rid of your creatures, right? You're gonna have creatures on the battlefield, I would imagine. You gotta have some sort of plan. I mean, the Barren Glory should really be plan B, not plan A. That's plan A. I don't know about that. I don't know. I think that's maybe that's a trap a lot of people have. They think they're like, this combo is great. I'm gonna build a whole deck around this. That's fine. But it probably should be plan B, not plan A. Plan A should just be like still winning with some sort of creature combo or creatures. There's got to be some alternative win condition. And this is just plan B. Like if the situation arises, you Barren Glory and wipe out the board with Obliterate. Have you ever just scooped to an Obliterate? Nope. Never. I got obliterated a few times in Standard at the time. Didn't feel good, but when you feel the Obliterate coming, you start sandbagging lands in your hand so it doesn't hurt so much. Really wish there was a viable way to use Phage as a commander. Phage, the untouchable. Black, 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 3 generic. Enters the battlefield. If you didn't cast it from your hand, you'll lose the game. It's like they had this in mind. Where is this from? Legions? Did Commander exist back then? Whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, it dies, but if you deal damage to a player, they lose. Man, this would be... I don't know if this would be the most broken Commander if you could play it in command, like as a Commander. I think there is a way of making this work, right? Or maybe you can't. I was thinking you have to use cards like Dress Down, but you'd be a mono black deck. You can't use Dress Down. Oh well. Commander Beacon, right? You can take it from your command zone into your hand. Or Command Beacon. Have we solved it? Sacrifice Command Beacon. Put your commander into your hand from the command zone. We cheated! We did it! Sort of defeats the perp. I mean, I guess it works. And then you can tutor out Command Beacon with like a expedition map. There you go. Problem solved. I do not promise that this is gonna work at all though. Could be clunky as hell. Oh, we got LOL Troll. Back in the day, I wanted Squee Goblin Nabob. Squee Goblin Nabob. To some work with Masticore, Ivory Tower, or something. That's how they did it back then. You did play it in a Masticore deck. Can't say that this is any good by today's standards, but yeah, that's how it was done. Because at the beginning of your upkeep, you may choose and discard a card from your hand if you don't sacrifice Masticore. So you could put Squee Goblin to Bob. I think some Ponza decks did that. Because, like, there were red... Like, there were all sorts... There was, like, a blue Masticore deck. There was a red one, a black one, a white one, a green one. It was a weird time back then. Who could make the best monocolor artifact deck with Masticore? And I think the red one played Squee Goblin to Bob. Could be wrong. Was it in a championship deck? Maybe it wasn't. Okay, if it wasn't in a championship deck, maybe I'm wrong. Or it's just wasn't good enough. You can use Platinum Angel or... Oh, that's an interesting line with the, with Phage. Yeah, play Platinum Angel along with this. Platinum Angel says you can't lose the game. Opponents can't win the game. Why? Game of Chaos is pretty hard to run in Commander, but it's pretty cool. Game of Chaos. We got the red sorcery. Flip a coin. Target opponent calls heads or tails while the coin is in the air. The loser of the flip loses 1 life. The winner flips again. The winner of the flip gains 1 life, and you may choose to repeat the process. Double the stakes each time. Good God. Well, you need to play like Krark's Thumb or something. It's a bit rough in Commander because everyone has like 1,000,000 life. Krark's Thumb. If you would flip a coin, instead flip 2 coins and ignore 1. Sweet stuff. Is this a real card? Mortal Kombat? Oh, they don't have. They're not using the K as a C. All right. You got around that intellectual property there, Hasbro. Okay, black, 2 generic enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if 20 or more creature cards are in your graveyard, you win the game. How have I never even heard of this card? How hard is this to even, like, pull off? At the beginning of your upkeep, if 20 or more creature cards are in your graveyard, you win the game. This looks like a staple in any deck. This look is insane. Like, that can't be too hard. I'm like, am I missing something? Like, this, now this is like a quintessential, just throw it in your deck if it uses any black cards at all, and then just slam this thing on the board when the time is right. I mean, not very good early in the game, but amazing later in the game. Can't even fly with another super chat. Next episode, bad cards that we somehow broke. Oh, God. In your opinions, you guys broke. Thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, self-mill game over. That's the plan. Well, okay, well, no, this is the pro. Maybe mill works. Maybe that's how it's done. Or maybe you just play some sort of dredgish deck, or some sort of reanimator decks, or some sort of deck that wants to put cards in the graveyard or makes big use of that. Or you just play in a regular deck. I don't know, your zombie or vampire deck. You got 20 creatures in your graveyard. Win the game. Actually, it might work in a zombie deck, because there's a lot of zombies that you sack your zombies, so you might just win through synergy. Or if you're not winning through synergy, at some point you just put Mortal Kombat on the battlefield and just sack everything and try to win the game at the end of turn. It's like you probably like, okay, you pass the turn, then they pass to you to your turn. Or I'll just sack my board and I'll win the game on my upkeep. Okay, a lot of people are like, Zur's wielding needs to gain life each turn. Zur's weirding. Yeah, he's like, your Zur's weirding. Blue 3 generic enchantment. Players play with their hands revealed. If a player would draw a card, he or she reveals it instead. Then any player may pay 2 life. If a player does, put that card into its owner's graveyard. Otherwise, that player draws the card. If a player would draw a card, they reveal it instead. If any player would pay 2 life, then any player may pay 2 life. If a player does, put that card into the owner's graveyard. Otherwise, the player draws the card. Oh, so everyone is allowed to pay life to make sure no one draws cards anymore. Or, like, they can't draw anything good. Gonna prevent them from getting the good stuff. Very interesting card. Doesn't seem that bad. Looks actually really good in Commander, because you have like 40 life to spare. Who cares? Well, you need more cards in hand and more life to start. Well, you do in Commander. You got that 40 life. Life is a resource. Use it. Michelin, tunnel vision seems great. What is this? Blue 5 generic sorcery. Name a card. Target player reveals cards from the top of their library until the named card is revealed. If it is, the player puts the rest of the revealed cards into his or her graveyard and puts the named card on top of his or her library. Otherwise, the player shuffles his or her library. How does that work? Tunnel vision. Target player reveals card. It could be yourself until the named card is revealed. If it is, the player puts the rest of the revealed cards into their graveyard. So basically, if you can hit the card that you want, they dump their library into the graveyard. If there is no card hit, you just shuffle the library instead. Neato. So the deal is you got to put some card on the bottom of their library that you know about, and then you tunnel vision them. Tunnel vision wins game in Commander. If you know the bottom card. If you know the bottom card. Joe Cube. Auric. Lore Mage. The black 2 generic 3/3 human warlock. Tap, search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle. Okay, that's a bit weird. If it's an instant or sorcery card, put a +1/+1 counter on Auric or Lore Mage. You just make some sort of reanimator deck. You know, you just put cards into the graveyard that you can make synergy out of. You want them in the graveyard. Tunnel with Thoracle. You know, honestly, that's a bit... I think that's a lame way to win with Thoracle. Like, yeah, you could probably do it. But I think it's a bit lame. There's a lot of other ways of winning with Thoracle. Much more efficient than this. Okay, what's this Chandra Blaze? This is Entomb on. Yeah, exactly. You know, I just Drat. What was that last card? You're down right. That was Entomb on a creature, and that is insanely powerful ability. So I can't really see how that thing goes wrong. Chandra Blaze, red 4 generic. What is wrong with this card? Unless you're trying to play this in a competitive format. +1, discard a card. If the red card is discarded this way, it deals 4 damage to target creature or player. -2, each player discards his or her hand, then draws 3 cards. And then -7, cast any number of red instant or sorcery cards from your graveyard without paying their mana costs. Maybe Christopher, you just love Chandras. You want to play Chandra Tribal, I see. Helix. Hold on, I'm gonna try to get to someone else. Okay, blue heart, orange heart. Every way to win with Thoracle is a bit lame. That's pretty true. True stuff. Lucas Verger, Annihilating Glare. Annihilating. Glare. The latest version of a concept they've been buffing, but it still won't work. Oh, they'll get there eventually. Alright, so it's a black sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay 4 mana or sack an artifact or creature. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Yeah, it's some deck that you have to make use... I mean, it's... If you're playing a deck with, say, a bunch of artifact tokens, like blood tokens or whatever, or clues, blood tokens, food tokens, the idea is you can turn those things into resources to play Annihilating Glare. Thing is, they gotta buff this up maybe a little bit more. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Sorcery speed, not exciting. Like, we got a lot of cards these days that are just 1 mana, just destroy the thing and it's over, right? Got tons of those cards. So 1 mana, kill the creature, not the most exciting thing. And I have to sack an artifact to make that work? No, make it a little bit better. We get at least instant. Maybe even draw a card or something like that. I like this card, always nice to have versatile costs. Absolutely. Alright, well that's it for Coffee and MTG today. Thank you very much for joining me. If you want to be part of the show, be here. Monday to Friday, 11 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. Thanks so much for your support, everyone who is a member of the channel, a patron on Patreon, and especially the people who super chat. They contribute to the show and also support it financially. I really appreciate it. That's why I'm here every morning. But most importantly, thank you everyone who shows up this morning. We gotta thank people like Bobby, King Ginger, Abzo, Tristan, Zek, Tetra Tim Bowman, John Lee, Andrew, Joe Cube, Drago, Vitron, Mark, Lucas, the big squig, Station. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here in the morning, because without you guys, I've got no show. You guys are the show. It's what makes Coffee and MTG so exciting. So, as usual, my coffee crew, you keep brewing up those coffees, and we'll keep brewing up the magic. Take care of yourselves. See you at the next cup.